Now, a new report out just shows just how concentrated wealth has become in the world. Now, as of this month, according to an analysis of 2016 data, it found that the world's richest 5 men owned just over $400 billion in wealth. Now, compare that to the poorest 5 deciles of the world population, who owned a total of $410 billion in total wealth. So let me break it down. So that means on average that each of these 5 guys owns nearly as much wealth as 750 million people. Damn. That is a staggering amount of wealth. 5 people owning as much wealth as 3.7 billion people. Now, what's interesting is, since the last time that they looked at this, it's actually dropped. There used to be 8 people. Now it's 5. We can now count on one hand the amount of people that own half the world's wealth. That is insane. And as wealth continues to concentrate more and more, less and less people are owning a much, much bigger share. Now you might think, great, hey man, what's the problem? These people are obviously better than everybody else. Really? You think they're better than 750 million people? Or 3.7 billion people? Just these 5 people? These are the alphas, right? Well, they must be born leaders. They must be better than everybody else. So, yeah, of course, they deserve every single penny of it. I don't believe that. I don't actually believe that. Look, let's be honest. Most people nowadays do not get rich according to their merit. Some do. Some have really good ideas, and they find a way to market those ideas, and they get wealthy. That's fantastic. Great. I have no issue with that, right? However, there are a lot of them who end up getting rich off just inherited wealth or a rigged political system that favors the rich and powerful and the rich and corporations. That system exists to transfer wealth away from everyday working people to the very, very wealthy. That's a bit of a problem. But for example, in 2016 alone, speaking of transfers of wealth, the richest 1% effectively shifted $4 trillion in wealth away from the rest of the nation to themselves. Nearly half of the wealth transfer, 1.594 trillion, came from the nation's 90% of poorest 90%, the middle and lower class. This is wealth redistribution. Now, conservatives, oh, they flip out about wealth redistribution. Oh my God, you're talking about socialism, wealth redistribution. We don't like that. You realize that that's what they've been doing to you for the last few decades. They've been shifting wealth from you into their own pockets. Now, they do it through tax policy, subsidies, and hoarding their money in tax shelters. For example, when they don't pay taxes, well, somebody's got to pay for government. That's you. You end up paying through your payroll taxes. In fact, a lot of companies, a lot of really wealthy people have changed their tax structures so that they no longer get taxable income, or not a big a share of it as they used to. They end up getting things like stock options and capital, where they make capital gains, which are actually taxed at a lower rate than incomes. That's why somebody like Warren Buffett, for example, can actually pay less in taxes as a percentage than their secretary. A lower effective tax rate. That's insanity. Warren Buffett's a billionaire. But it's because of these tax rules and because of these tax policies that big corporations and the very wealthy can get away with essentially murder. At least when it comes to wealth. And why all of this wealth gets transferred away from you into their pockets. Again, same thing with subsidies. We are subsidizing companies right now that do not need it. A lot of companies. And we're even doing subsidies through things that are supposed to actually help people. For example, let's talk about food stamps for a little bit. The SNAP program, incredibly important. I'm somebody who defends it to the hilt. But in a way, Walmart abuses that same system in order to keep its wages artificially low. it takes advantage of the food stamp program. People who work at Walmart are paid such low wages that they have to receive food stamps. Walmart keeps their prices low, where these people have to go in and use their SNAP benefits at Walmart. In fact, that's why you do see this company, the very same company, going against cuts to the SNAP program. Again, I don't think cuts are the answer, but a living wage is. And that's what they hate. There's a great example of an indirect subsidies. Sometimes there are direct subsidies in payments to these corporations. And you also have, again, the issue of tax havens. Places like Costa Rica, I believe it was Costa Rica, Ireland, which have such low tax rates where people can stash their money, almost tax-free, until a politician, for example, a Republican like George W. Bush, goes into office and says, hey, let's have a tax holiday. Bring back all this money, but at a much lower tax rate. And if an added bonus, they promised they'll create jobs. Now, we already did that. We did that during the Bush years, and it was a boondoggle. So many people ended up losing their jobs, even after these companies got massive amounts of their money from overseas back into their pockets. And what did they do? They slashed their workforces, and they continued to up executive compensation and did massive stock buyback programs. That's what happened to that money. That's, again, another way that they transfer wealth from regular people to themselves. And you even have some tech companies, for example, or just any company that gets rich off using infrastructure that our tax dollars have paid for. The reason that I said tech company is because the internet's a great example. Now, the internet was originally created through government research and investment. They had to create a business, which is a good thing. I'm in favor of that. It benefits from that infrastructure, but then they privatize all the gains. And then they buy our politicians, and these companies, through their donations to politicians, get preferred tax policies that lower their own tax bills. And as a result, they no longer can contribute to the country and to the infrastructure that has actually made their own businesses very successful. And then they end up having to go to you. You end up paying a higher tax or a higher fee or something in order to subsidize those companies. And yes, it wasn't, it was the Cayman Islands. Sorry, Costa Rica. No hate to Costa Rica. It is the Cayman Islands. Anyway, now, look, we also have the issue of stagnant wages and the loss of benefits like healthcare and even retirement accounts. There are no pensions anymore. Now they're 401ks, which are tied to the stock market. Look, people around the country, and not just around the country, but around the world, are hurting. While the richest among us, they continue to suck up all that wealth, as if they have an enormous vacuum cleaner. Now, most of these 5 richest people happen to be Americans. Now, in our context, that money could be going to things like universal education, healthcare, homes for the homeless, job training programs, and all sorts of other things, infrastructure. Instead, what you end up having is people hoarding this wealth like they're Scrooge McDuck. Now, again, I don't have an issue with people becoming wealthy. Perhaps one day I will become wealthy. I don't know. But I know, for example, that I don't need more wealth than half of the world to be happy, to be satisfied, especially if that life is financed and comes at a cost to other human beings. I would not be comfortable with that. That cost, of course, being someone who doesn't have health care, or, to manage any sort of health problems, or somebody who gets cancer and can no longer afford the treatments because they couldn't afford insurance, or somebody who's bright, for example, but can't afford to take out those student loans or to get an education. Those are the costs you pay when you're a wealthy person and don't contribute back to the system. Now, We might be able to print our money, but our wealth is finite. And unfortunately, more and more of it is in the hands of the very, very few. And when that happens, when wealth concentration and inequality gets to such a high level, it hurts everyone. What we need to do is we need to have policy that encourages a more equitable distribution of wealth, not just in America. This isn't just a uniquely American problem. This is also a world problem. We need to do this around the globe if we're actually going to be a society that, well, as far as our American context, be that society that we want to be, where everybody has an opportunity and everybody can make it in America. It is not that land of opportunity anymore, and it's because more and more of that wealth is concentrated at the very top, and that opportunity, the ladder of opportunity, continues to be raised higher and higher and higher, so that so many at the bottom are not even able to reach the lower rung. We have to fix that, or else some very bad things are going to happen. That's not me saying it. Just look at the history. Every time wealth inequality gets to a certain level, bad things start to happen. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.